Today we're covering life insurance. It's actually a misnomer. Flood insurance protects against flood, fire insurance protects against fire, and life insurance protects against loss of life. Now life insurance, and for the 1 millionth time, what is the number one thing you need to know about life insurance? Well, what are your goals? Again, this all comes back to your goals on whether you need and how much life insurance. All of that boils down to what you're trying to achieve. Also, for the 1 millionth time, maybe the 100th time with life insurance or with insurance in general, insurance transfers risk at a cost. It's a risk strategy where you transfer your risk to somebody else. This is not a lottery ticket and not a moneymaker. Although with life insurance, people kind of understand this because, winning on life insurance is dying. So most people get the idea. So again, with insurance, the thing to remember is that on average you're losing, but that's okay because transferring that risk to another entity is valuable. Now I've included some information, a link below, to help you through the life insurance terms of what an insured person is, what premiums are, very similar to healthcare premiums, health insurance premiums, beneficiaries, the term, the benefit payout. And so all the details will be below for you to check out, but putting it all together into a single sentence that you should be able to understand would be, over a contract term, as long as the insured person pays the premium every year and the insured person passes away during the term, the beneficiary will receive the contracted benefit or payout. So you should be comfortable enough with these terms that sentence makes sense. So with life insurance, should I buy it? And really, that comes down to your goals and this question of, if you were gone tomorrow, what would you want for those you care about? Now, a few things to consider with that is, well, you might want to pay off some significant debts, say a mortgage and other obligations, and you also might want to protect those you care about from loss of income. Now, many with significant net worth choose not to buy life insurance. Say Warren Buffett, he probably doesn't have life insurance. But even those with significant net worth, many of them consider, worst case scenario, maybe there's some bankruptcy or something and we lose everything. At least we have that life insurance. So even in those situations, many times these people opt for life insurance. So the other last thing to consider with life insurance is the cost of it is going to go up significantly as you age. And so it's going to get more and more and more expensive. And so you need to reconsider the costs and benefits periodically throughout your life. Speaking of the probability of dying, how much does life insurance cost? Well, from the life insurer's perspective, the primary determinant of the cost is the chance of you dying. So is life insurance cheap or expensive? And that depends on your chance of dying in any given year. Accordingly, there are very probing questions in a health exam, all sorts of questions from tobacco use to alcohol to exercise perhaps, and they can ask very probing questions. Even recently I have read in some of my research that insurers are starting to comb through social media as well, and that's fair game to determine your probability of dying. If you lie on these questions and they find out, you can lose all your benefits, and it kind of defeats the purpose. So if you end up revealing of some risky thing that you do in your life, let's say you love to go paragliding, well, you're going to end up paying more for life insurance, but paying a little bit more for life insurance is cheaper than getting nothing at all when, let's say, they find out that you lied. Now, you should know the difference between whole and term life insurance, and there's an article and some videos below to help you understand the difference between the two and when you should prefer one versus the other. And kind of one of the takeaway quote from one of the articles is term insurance is cheaper and is almost always the best type of insurance for 80% of the nation. Whole life can make sense occasionally, but it's kind of the exception rather than the rule. And it can make sense for a very specific personal situation and sometimes for tax reasons. But probably for you in your life, do your homework, talk to an advisor if need be, but term life insurance tends to be the right call. Now let me share just kind of my situation. I have a term life insurance policy It was kind of the best fit for me in my situation. When I got it, it was a 25-year term with a certain payoff, and that payoff was sufficient to cover all of the immediate term expenses and, say, mortgage and debt and some other items at a fairly reasonable cost for my situation. Now, was it worth it for my situation? Well, for my specific goals and what I cared about, yes, it was. And that's really what term life insurance comes down to, is selecting the term and the payoff that makes the most sense for what you want for your situation. Now, there are a couple final items within life insurance you need to be aware of. The first is voluntary lapse. So first of all, when do you think life insurers make their money in term life insurance? Toward the beginning or the end? Now, there's this initial cost in order to get you into the system and health checkups and such. But once they cover those initial costs, it's actually at the beginning that insurers actually make their money. It's this fixed revenue source. It's the same amount of money every single year. And inflation is kind of eating away at that revenue. And on top of that, your probability of dying tends to increase as you age. And so the potential cost is going up and the revenue in real terms adjusted for inflation is going down. And so a life insurer would actually prefer, much of the time, depending on the price, if you don't quite make it all the way to the end of your term. And, there's some insurers are better than others, but for some life insurers, there's no auto pay option, partially because they're hoping that you forget about it and you don't pay your policy and it kind of cancels and you move away and you kind of lose it in the mix-up. However, this does make insurance cheaper in a competitive market because they're counting on a certain number of people to forget and move or whatever and not pay. So if you are the type who doesn't forget and who's on top of your life insurance, you can actually benefit from slightly cheaper life insurance, but you don't want to be one of those people who you went through the trouble of getting life insurance and then kind of forgot about it or stopped paying it halfway through. Last bit on employer-provided life insurance. Lots of employers provide life insurance for their employee because people like it, and it's really cheap for employers to do this. So a lot of them do it for, say, 1 times their salary or 2 times their salary or something like that. And you can request to have that adjusted at many companies. But there's one problem, though. What if you get super sick and then die, say, a few years later instead of, say, getting hit by a bus? If that happens, you may have to quit work, and then maybe you lose your life insurance because it's tied to your work. Then you die, then you've missed out on this life insurance. So because of this, life insurance at, say, your company, your employment, it's nice to have, but it's not a replacement for life insurance unless, say, that policy were made portable, as in if you lose your job or if you get sick, you're allowed to keep hanging on to that policy, which is sometimes the case at some places, and it's not the case at others. So it's just something to consider that employer-provided life insurance isn't exactly just this perfect substitute for getting your own, say, portable life insurance. Let's end on a slightly more positive note. So what I'd recommend as far as Personal Finance Life Lesson 79 is to have fun money, but just to budget that fun money. Set a certain amount of money aside every single month to do something fun with. And the benefit of this is that it makes budgeting kind of less of a drudgery because there's kind of this guilt-free account that you can spend some of. It's that fun money. But it's something to think about first. So you can select out of many options kind of what you as, say, a family or as an individual want to do for fun that month. So what are some examples? Maybe, splurging on nice running shoes because that's a hobby that you have. Maybe movies or a streaming account. Maybe an annual contract for monthly massages. It's just something that you really, really enjoy, and that's the thing that you're going to do. Or maybe it's just high quality ice cream, because that's my thing. Anyway, the end point is that you may be able to afford any one of these things, but often you just can't afford all of the things. And so setting that money aside, of that guilt-free fun money, allows you to sit down and think about what is it that I really enjoy, what is it that I really want to do, and to choose that. So let's end on that positive note.